this session, we are going to learn some interview questions on RPA which will make you to understand what is RPA and basics of it. Let's move on to the session. So, the first question is, what is RPA? Robotic Process Automation. RPA is an acronym for Robotic Process Automation. Robotics is nothing but a machine or any software application which mimics a human action or called as robots. The next thing is process. A sequence of steps which leads to a meaningful activity is called as a process. For example, you have to download all the mail attachments and save it in a particular location. So the steps are: log into the account, download the attachment and save it in a particular location. So this is called as a process. Automation is any process which is done by a robot without any human intervention is called as automation. So combining these three, mimicking the human actions to perform a sequence of steps that leads to a meaningful activity without any human intervention is called as RPA. So let's move on to the next question. What are the benefits of using RPA? The first benefit is it saves cost. By automating all the repetitive tasks, you can reduce the size of the workforce and in turn reduces the cost. So RPA reduces cost. The next benefit is more accurate in lesser time. So human errors can be eliminated by RPA and the execution time for a process is very low when compared to the manual task. And the third one is easy to implement and learn. So it is easy to learn RPA and cost to implement is also very low. No coding is required. RPA can implemented to automate any repetitive process which is done on a computer. So very minimal coding knowledge is required for RPA. So these are the 4 benefits of using RPA. Let's move on to the next question. So the third question is difference between AI, RPA and machine learning. So before RPA we have a term called robotic desktop automation. Robotic desktop automation is used to automate standalone applications, whereas RPA is used for standalone web Citrix automation. So RPA and RDA are non-judgmental and rule-based. Non-judgmental means the bot cannot make decision by its own, where machine learning and artificial intelligence bot can make decision by its own. The difference between RDA and RPA is RDA works only with manual intervention, whereas RPA works with digital triggers without any manual intervention. So these are the difference between 3. So let's move on to the next question. The fourth question is, what is the difference between UiPath, Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere? We have 3 common and popularly used tools: UiPath, Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere. UiPath has community edition which is freely available, and Blue Prism does not have any trial version, whereas Automation Anywhere has trial version but expires after 30 days. UiPath is very user friendly, whereas Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere requires higher programming knowledge, and UiPath is a most popular tool than Blue Prism and Automation Anywhere. I'll show you the URL to download UiPath Studio. So this is the URL, platform.uipath.com. Here you can download the community edition as well as the enterprise edition, and you can also update your license here. So let's move on to the 5th question. Now we are going to learn some topics on UiPath. What is meant by UiPath? UiPath is a RPA software tool. Using UiPath you can automate any process. We have 3 UiPath platforms. UiPath Studio, which is used to design and develop your project. It creates your project in .xaml file, whereas UiPath Robot is used to run your project. It converts the .xaml file to NuGet package and execute the package. The third one is UiPath Orchestrator. It is a web application used to control all the bots. You can deploy, schedule, monitor and report the process. So these are the 3 UiPath platforms. So let's move on to the next question. What are the types of workflow? We have three types of workflow used in UiPath: sequence, flowchart, and state machines. The first one is sequence. The sequence is used for a smaller project and suitable for linear process. The key feature is you can reuse the sequence in another project easily. So the next thing is flowchart. Flowchart can be used from larger jobs to smaller jobs. Mainly flowchart is used for multiple branching logical operator. Here also you can reuse the flowchart in another project. The third one is state machines. State machine uses finite number of states in execution. It consists of multiple triggers. It can go into a state when it is triggered by an activity and executes and exits when another activity is triggered. So this is called state machine. So let's move on to the next question. So the seventh question is, how many ways are there for creating a variable in UiPath and how to delete a variable? So there are three ways to create a variable in the UiPath. I'll show you that. So the first way is, in control bar you'll have a tab called variable. Here in the variable you can create the variable. You can specify the variable type, variable scope, and the default value for the variable by just clicking on create variable. Here you can give the variable types and scope for the variable as well. So this is the first type of creating the variable. After that, second type is you can drag any activity and you have to press Ctrl K, create any variable. So now the variable will be created in a generic value. So this is the second way of creating the variable. The third way is, in the property panel you have an option to create the variable. The same way, Ctrl K, you can type the variable name, press enter, and OK. So in the variable tab you can check the variable is created with a generic type. So this is the three ways to create a variable. Now if you want to delete a variable, right click on the variable, delete. So these are the three ways of creating the variable and deleting the variable. The next question is, what is meant by generic variable in UiPath? It is a special variable which can store any data type like string, integer, date forms, arrays, etc. So to create a generic variable, here variables tab, create variable. You can give a variable name and here we have to choose generic value. So now we have created a generic value, and if you want to remove all the unused variable, you have an option called remove unused variable. So it will remove all the unused variable. This is called as a garbage collection. So our next question is, we saw about variables. We called the next type is, what is mean by arguments and how to manage argument. Argument is used to pass data to another project or another workflow. Difference between the variable and the argument is, variable pass data to the another or activity, whereas argument pass data to another workflow. So we can create arguments in generic type, text, integer, data table, boolean, etc. So the another important point about arguments is we can specify the direction for this. We have three type of direction: in, out, and in out. In direction is used to bring the argument inside the workflow. Out direction to pass the data from one workflow to another workflow. In and out to use inside and outside the workflow. So I'll show you with an example. Here I have created three workflows. I have already created a variable on it called output. This doesn't have any value. So from workflow 1, I'm passing the value to my variable called output. So this is an argument. I have created the direction as out. Since I am passing the data from argument 1 to the variable output, so from this variable I'm passing the value to next argument 2. I've created the direction as in out. Since I'm going to take the value from the variable, and I'm also going to pass the variable a value to next workflow. So these are the directions for the argument. What is the assign activity in UIPath? Assign activity is used to assign a value to a variable. They are mostly used when there is a need for incrementing a variable's value in a loop. So I'll show you the assign activity in UIPath. So you have to move to the activities panel, drag the assign activity into your sequence. So the assign activity has two mandatory fields, that is to and value. The to field consists of what value you are going to assign for a variable. So what is the variable? So as I said before, you can create a variable from here. Control K. I'm creating a variable a int underscore a. Okay, so now this variable will be created under the variable type as generic. So I'm changing this as integer. Now I can assign a value here or an expression in the value tab. So I'm assigning as 12. So these are the two mandatory fields in the assign activity. This is mainly used for incrementing the value of the variable inside a loop. So our next question is, what is delay activity? UiPath uses a special activity called as delay activity, which is used to pause the execution. This is mainly used to wait for the particular application to start or wait for the information to appear. So this is a special activity used in UiPath. It waits for some time which we specify. So I'll tell you what is the activity is. So here we have to type delay. So drag the delay activity to your sequence. So we have only one mandatory field here, that is duration. So the UiPath asks you for how much minutes or second you want to pause the execution. So this duration we have to specify. So it takes in a format of hour, minute and second. So I have given 10 seconds for this. So after doing some sort of process, it waits for 10 seconds for another application or any other information to appear. So this is the use of delay activity in UiPath. So the next question is, what is if activity? If activity in UiPath is to deal with two conditions. When the first statement is executed, if the condition is true, and the second one is executed if the condition is false. So if you want to split your workflow as two sections, you'll use if activity. So the first statement will be executed when the condition is true, and the first set of activities will be executed if the condition is false. So here in activities panel you have to type if, drag and drop the if activity. So here you have a condition tab. Here you have to specify the conditions. What is a condition you have to check for? So if the condition is true, it will move to the then part. If the condition is false, it will move to the else part. So this is the workflow for if activity. The next activity is for each activity. The for each activity is used for iterating the data and process of each information separately. It is used in array, data table, list or collections. So if you want to iterate a list or a collection, you'll use for each activity. If it will iterate the collection and process each item separately. So from here we have to drag for each. So we have two options here, for each row and for each. For each row is used for iterating data table alone. For each control is used for iterating array, list, collection, etc. So both have the same property, but the difference is it is for each row is used for data table only. For each control is used for array, list and collections. So I'm dragging the for each. So here we have to specify the array or list name. Here we can choose the type for it. Change the type here as data table or anything else, string or any type which you are going to iterate. And inside body will process each item separately. So this is the functionality for each activity. Our next question is, what is while activity in UiPath? While activity is also used for iterating the data if the condition is true, and if the condition is false, it breaks the loop. This activity is also same as the for each activity, but the only difference is between for each and while is for each will not look for any condition, but while activity looks for the condition. If the condition is true, it executes the sequence of steps, or otherwise it breaks the loop. So we have while and do while activity. Do while will check for the will execute the activity and then only it checks for the condition. While activity will checks for the condition and then only execute the activity. So do while activity executes the action at least once. So I'll show an example. While, so we have while and do while. While executes if the condition is true. Do while executes at least once if the before checking the conditions. So I'm dragging the while activity. Here we have to give the condition for while activity, and in body we can execute the sequence which we have to follow. So our next question is, what is break activity in UiPath? Break activity is used to stop the particular loop at some point and continue with the other activity. So when we are iterating like for each, while and do while, if you want to break the loop at some point of time and continue with the some other activity, we'll use break activity. It executes a loop, it breaks the loop and come out of the loop. So this is the use of break activity. So our next question is, what is UI activities property? We have certain properties for all UiPath activities. So the common properties are continue on error. Even when the activity shows error, still the automation will be continued if we set the continue on error property as true. So it accepts only boolean values, either true or false. If we set the value as true, even if any activity shows error, it still continues the automation. If we set it as false, it'll it'll stop the automation. So this is continue on error property. Delay after, as I said before, delay is used to pause the automation for some time. So delay after property is used to pause the activity after executing it. For example, I'm executing a type into activity. I'm giving delay after for that, so it executes a type into activity and waits for some time. So that is called as delay after property. Delay before property, it pauses the execution before the activity is executed. So before type into activity is executed, it pauses the automation. So this is called as delay before. So timeout ms is used to find the element before the error is shown. So it searches for the element which we have specified before any error occurs. And the next property is wait for ready. It waits until the target element is ready. So we have three properties on this: none, complete, and interactive. None is no wait for ready. Complete is it completely wait for the target element to appear before you perform the activity. So this is the wait for ready property. Target is nothing but the UI element which we are identifying. So I'll show you all this property. So here I have used a type into. In type into we have all these properties. Continue on error. So as I said, continue on error. If we set the value as true, even if any error occurs before performing the type into activity, it neglects the error and move on to the next activity. So if I set that as false, it stops the automation. Our next activity is delay after. If I give delay after, it executes the type into activity and then waits for the then pauses the automation. Delay before type into activity is executed, it waits for some time. So and target is the exact position of the element which we are identifying. Wait for ready, you can set wait for ready as complete, interactive, or none. If I set the wait for ready value as complete, it waits for the element to appear completely. So these are the properties of UI activity. So our next question is selectors and wildcards. What are selectors and wildcards? Selector are used to store the attributes of graphical UI in a XAML fragment. So if we are identifying an element, the selector will internally, like the UiPath Studio will internally take the attributes of the UI element. We need to change the selector if we are using static user interface. If we are using dynamic user interface, then we have two dynamic values. Asterisk is used to replace more characters and question mark is used to replace a single character. So I have an example. I'm dragging a click activity here. Indicate on screen. So I'm indicating this icon in my mail, from my mail. So it takes the selector of this attribute. I'll show you the selector. So this is the exact selector of the attribute which I have shown. So it has taken the browser type, Chrome or IE. It has taken the title here and my mail ID. So here the inbox count can vary. Tomorrow it may increase or decrease. So in this time it is changing dynamically, so I can replace all this character by star asterisk. So this value can change dynamically, uh, regardless it finds the element correctly. So after validating it is able to validate the uh, item, it is able to find the item. So this is the wildcards usage. If you are replacing a single character, we can use question mark. If you are replacing a set of character, we have to use asterisk. So this is all about selectors and wildcards. So our next topic is screen scraping and data scraping. So scraping is in the sense we are going to get a text from the application or URL or anything. We are going to scrape a text. So screen scraping is used for scraping a small text, whereas data scraping is used for scraping a table or any structured data. Screen scraping allows only for scraping a small text, getting a small text from any application. Data scraping is used for large text. So the difference is screen scraping is used to extract non-structured data. Since it is taking the small text from any application, so it can be non-structured. But data scraping used to extract only structured data, that is like table or any structured format of data. So it stores, the screen scraping stores the information in a string variable, whereas data scraping stores the information in a data table. Since I said it forms a structured data in a table format, so it stores in a data table, whereas screen scraping will store the information in string. So it is cannot be easily extract the data from Excel. So since I said data scraping is used for the table to extract huge information, so data scraping will be used to extract the data from the Excel, and screen scraping we cannot extract the data from Excel. And in screen scraping you can extract the image and PDF, whereas the image and the PDF are not structured data, so data scraping will not work on this. So this is the difference between screen scraping and data scraping. So what is recording and types of recording? Recording is a special feature which is available in the UIPath. A recording is used to capture the user actions on the screen and converts them into the sequence. Instead of dragging the sequence manually, it will capture the user actions and it will create a sequence for that. So we have four type of recording: basic, desktop, web and Citrix. Basic recording generates full selector for each and every activity, and it is used for standalone applications recording. Desktop recording is also used for standalone applications or desktop application recording, but the difference is it creates partial selector for each activity and it puts in a separate containers, whereas basic recording will not create any containers. Web recording is used for web application and browsers. Citrix recording is used for virtualized environment like Citrix environment. We can use Citrix recording. So I'll show you the difference between a basic and desktop recording. So here I have recorded a sequence where I'll log into the I'll open the Google browser. I'll type weather in Chennai and I'll scrape the weather of Chennai. So this I have recorded using basic and desktop. So here in basic recording it has not created any containers and it is creating full selector. So it is creating starting from HTML to till the selector for the UI element. So all the activities have created full selector for basic recording and it is not created any containers, whereas desktop recording is has created containers. If we are having multiple actions and multiple tabs, it will create separate container for all the each tabs, so that will be easy for a bot to identify which tab we have to work and which tab we have to identify the UI element. And here it is creating partial selector. See, the HTML selector is been grayed out, so it is using partial selector. So this is the difference between basic and desktop recording. Both basic and desktop recording is used for only desktop automation, but the difference is desktop recording is more accurate and more useful than basic recording. So here I have mentioned the difference between basic and desktop recording. So basic recording generates full selector, as I said. Desktop recording creates partial selector on each activity. Basic recording is suitable for a single activity, like you have only one tab and you are scraping some element and you are working with only one tab, you can use a basic recording. If you have multiple activities and multiple tabs, then desktop recording will be more accurate than basic. So basic recording is very slower and desktop recording is fast, and basic recording will not create any container, whereas desktop recording will create containers for each activity. So these are the difference between basic and desktop recording. Web recording and Citrix recording are used. Web recording is used for web application and browsers. Citrix recording is used for virtual environments. Our next question is difference between element exist and find element. Find element is used for it waits for a specified UI element to appear on screen and returns it as a UI element variable. If the element doesn't appear, it will throw an exception or an error. So it waits until the UI element appears on the screen. So this is called as find element. Element exist enables you to verify if the UI element exists or not. If it is not visible, it will set the variable as false. If it is visible, it will set the variable as true. So this is the difference between find element and element exist. So here I have both the activities. So find element will wait until the element appears and returns the UI element as a variable. So the output of the find element will be the UI element attributes. Element exist will return either true or false. It supports only boolean variables. It return whether the element exists or the element has appeared or not. If the element appears, it will set the variable as true. If not, it will set the variable as false. So this is the difference between find element and element exist. Our next question is package manager in UIPath. Package manager in UIPath allows you to download the activity package easily. So if you want Excel activities in your workflow, you can directly install the package using manage package tab. So it will be easy for you to download all the packages or activities which is needed for you in the project. So here we call our option called manage package. So here you can install whatever the activities you want. So here I have installed all the Excel mail system activities. If you want some other activities, you have to go to all packages. You can install whatever activities you want. So if you want to install Excel activities or Microsoft Office activity, you can directly install this. You can also change the version for this. And we have runtime rules as strict and low applicable. If you are using Excel activities, you can make it as strict. If the runtime rule is strict, the bot will not run without having the Excel activity package. If you set it as low applicable version, it will run the it will run the bot even if the package is not available. So this is the runtime rules. We'll make it as strict always, and we can change the version, and you can just install the package which you want. So this is managing package in UiPath. And our last question is, what is debugging in UiPath? Debugging is used to identify the error in your project. So you have two sections, breakpoints and slow step. Breakpoints is used to stop the execution and execute step by step with highlighting each activity. If you have set breakpoint for a single activity, it will stop the execution there, and it will execute each and every activity step by step by highlighting the activity. So the next one is slow step. Slow step will actually execute each activity and show the value for each activity. If you are using if condition, it will show whether the condition is true or false. It will show all the values for the variable and all the values for the conditions, loops, everything. It will show and will highlight each and every activities. So this is called as slow step. So by using debugging, we can identify the error in our project. So we have a tab here called debug. So here we have breakpoints, toggle breakpoints. So the bot will stop the execution here. After this, it will highlight all the activity, and it will show the output for each activity. Here we have slow step also. So slow step is also execute each and every activity and shows the output for each activity. So that's all about UiPath and RPA. Thank you. Happy learning.